exile was more than a move from one place to another. The season of disruption, where that which had once given life was stripped away. This is a different kind of crisis, one that was heard only about through the stories of old, passed down from one generation to the next. This is a different kind of crisis, one that was heard about only through the stories of old, passed down from one generation to the next. The story of Pharaoh, the parting of the Red Sea, the God who made a way out of no way. And for those in exile, it raised a serious question. By the hospital bed, the broken relationships, the anxiety about the future, the mornings where we wake up and feel that the life we are living no longer makes sense, somewhere in the liminal spaces, the same question arises: where is God? Have any that space where you question, okay, into the deep longing of our heart that God speaks, mighty waters. In this, God is hearkening back to the memories and the stories of the past. God intentionally called these things to the Israelites' minds. God reminds them of the salvific history of God. It is I, your God, who led you through the Red Sea into freedom. God of that salvific history. But then, what God says next is equally astonishing. Do not remember the former things or consider the things of old. The call from God seems almost contradictory. Verse 16 and 17 call to the minds of the Israelites the things of old, and then verse 18 says, don't remember them. What is God doing here? The truth of the matter is that God is directly addressing who we are as a people. We recall the good old days when life was better. We long for the past to the point of idolizing it. We stop making progress forward. We stop doing good work because we're so focused on what happened in the past, and we want to replicate it. We want God to part the waters again. We want God to make a path again. We want God to work exactly like God did before because we know what to look for. We recognize that God. We know the signs of old. If we see those same signs, then we know that God is at work. This temptation to idolize the things of old isn't just for us as individuals, but it is true for our communities of faith as well. We want God to make the church like it was in the past. In a new program, a new ministry, a new building, then people will come to us. Yet this idolizes the ways of the past and disrupts the work that God is doing now. You see, that's what Isaiah is getting at. If we are so focused on the things of old, we begin to expect God in the same way that God worked in the past. That's not to say that God never does something God has done before. But if we are so focused on looking for the ways God has worked in the past, we miss the ways that God is at work in the world today. That's why Isaiah names the way God has worked in the past, but then says, do not remember the old ways. We are called to remember that God did make a way in the past. Then we are called to set aside our expectations of how God makes a way and remember that God will continue to make a way, and it won't look like the way we want it to look like. If we're so focused on boxing God in and confining God to working only one way, then we fail to see how God is making a way right in front of our eyes. In other words, our memories can be a gift, but our memories can also be a trap. Amen? Memory is a gift when it reminds us to be alert for the work of God in the world. Memory is a trap when it holds us hostage, when we define ourselves by it, when it keeps us from seeing God at work in the world. The problem is not that God is not doing something new. The problem is we don't see it. When we find ourselves in this place, we begin to hear phrases like, we can't do that, or that's not the way we've always done it, or I don't like that, and I don't like this. And if we're honest with ourselves, the thing blocking our new path is often what we refuse to put down. The thing blocking our new path is often the thing we refuse to put down. Throughout the movie, we see the weight Tom carries. We especially see the weight of his grief, both over the loss of his wife and the loss of his son,